I ended up in the hospital with a crushing headache that felt like my skull was about to split in two. I reached out to everyone, my son, his wife, even the grandchildren. Not a single one of them came. My daughter-in-law snapped back with a message that stung like acid: "We're on a family trip. Don't bother us." When they eventually showed up, all they found was a letter waiting on the bedside table. "I'm glad you're here. Follow my story until the end and tell me the city you're watching from, so I'll know how far my voice is carried." The agony first struck at 3:47 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I was fixated on the glowing red digits of my alarm clock, forcing myself to breathe while it felt like knives were being driven through my head. At 66, I thought I knew what headaches were, but this was something else. This was the kind of pain that makes you question if your last moments have arrived. With shaking hands, I fumbled for my phone. The first number I dialed was Aaron, my only son. Straight to voicemail. His cheerful pre-recorded message told me to leave a note and he'd get back to me soon. As if a medical emergency could wait for convenience. "Aaron, it's Mom," I whispered, my own voice sounding foreign to my ears. "I'm in terrible pain. I think I need to go to the hospital. Please call me." 20 minutes crawled by. No response. The fire spreading down my neck only worsened. I tried again. Voicemail. Again. Desperate, I called Lila, my daughter-in-law. She was never warm to me, but surely an emergency would break through her frosty exterior. The phone rang 4 times before she answered, her voice already coated with irritation. "Clara, do you know what time it is?" "I'm sorry to wake you," I pleaded. "But I'm in awful pain. I may need an ambulance." "Is Aaron there?" There was muffled conversation in the background before she returned, her voice colder than ever. "We're on vacation, Clara. This is our time with the kids. Please don't call again unless it's a matter of life and death." Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, her words echoing. Vacation. Family vacation. The son I had sacrificed for, the grandchildren I had helped raise, and yet, I wasn't considered part of that family. Not even worth concern as I lay possibly dying. In the end, I dialed 911 myself. They found me collapsed on the kitchen floor, unable to make it to the door. The ambulance ride blurred past in sirens and hurried questions I could barely register. Did I have emergency contacts? Yes, Aaron's number. Any other family? Just him, just his wife. At the ER, they ran test after test, scans, blood work, neurological exams. A kind doctor about my age, Dr. Wilkins, finally sat by my bed with the results. "Mrs. Lowell, you suffered a severe tension headache, most likely brought on by extreme stress. Your blood pressure was dangerously high when you arrived. We'll need to keep you overnight for observation." I nodded numbly. "Did anyone reach my son?" Her eyes softened with pity. "We called several times." No answer. That's when the truth slammed into me. I was alone. Utterly, completely alone. The only sounds in my room were the slow beep of the monitors and the muffled footsteps in the hallway. I stared at the ceiling tiles, wondering how I had become so disposable to the very people I had given everything for. A nurse named Elena came by near midnight. She was in her 40s, warm eyes, steady hands as she adjusted my fore. "Are you comfortable, Mrs. Lowell? Do you need more medication for the pain? Just any calls for me?" I asked, hope flickering. She shook her head gently. "I'm sorry, dear. But try to rest. Sometimes family just doesn't know how to handle things like this." But I knew better. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't fear. This was indifference. When I finally woke again, morning light streamed through the blinds. Another nurse placed a tray of food in front of me. My phone lay silent on the bedside table. No missed calls. No texts. Nothing. As I poked at the bland hospital eggs, a harsh clarity took hold. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't temporary. This was reality. I was not needed. Not loved. I was simply the convenient grandmother when babysitters were expensive, the reliable mother who covered down payments and bills, the dependable one who never asked for anything but inclusion. And still, I was excluded. Forgotten. The realization should have shattered me. But strangely, it didn't. For the first time in decades, I felt something sharp cut through the fog I'd been living in: clarity. I had poured myself out for others until nearly nothing was left. Nearly nothing, but not quite. Dr. Wilkins returned for rounds. "How are you this morning, Mrs. Lowell?" "Different," I answered truthfully. "Doctor, what do you recommend for a patient who has no family support?" She studied me carefully. "Are you asking in theory?" "No. I'm asking because I think I've just become that patient." She pulled up a chair, her expression serious. "In my 20 years of practice, I've seen this often. You can't control what others do. But you can decide how you respond. Pretending it doesn't hurt is a choice, but not one you have to keep making." When she left, I reached for the pen and notepad by my bed. My hands no longer trembled. I had thinking to do. For the first time, it wasn't about what my son or his wife needed. It was about what I wanted. Their vacation would end eventually. Aaron and Lila would return, expecting to find the same accommodating mother and grandmother they left behind. But this time, they were in for a shock. Memories began to replay in my mind as I sat there, pieces of a puzzle I had ignored for too long. How did I end up reduced to the family ATM, the unpaid babysitter, the woman tucked away in the shadows? It had started so subtly. When Aaron brought Lila home 8 years ago, I was thrilled. My son, 32 and finally settling down with a sharp, ambitious woman who seemed to adore him. I wanted so badly to be the kind of mother-in-law I never had, supportive, helpful, never intrusive. Lila was clever. She never asked outright. Instead, she hinted, dreams just beyond their reach. The apartment that was perfect but just slightly over budget. The wedding that would be exactly what we want, if only we could afford the venue we love. And I, desperate to help, wrote check after check, convincing myself it was an investment in their happiness. When they bought their first home, I handed over $20,000 for the down payment. "Just a loan, Mom," Aaron had said, hugging me tight. "We'll pay you back soon." That was 7 years ago. The loan vanished from memory. When their daughter Lily was born, I was ecstatic. My first grandchild, perfect in every way, with Aaron's eyes and my stubborn chin. I happily drove the 40 minutes 3 times a week so Lila could work part-time. "You're such a lifesaver, Clara," she'd gush, purse in hand. "Lily's napping, bottles in the fridge. I'll be back around 5. I adored those days. Rocking Lily, singing lullabies I once sang to Aaron, dreaming of spoiling her endlessly. Her first steps happened in my living room, her tiny hands reaching for me. My heart nearly burst. I called Lila immediately, overjoyed. Her voice cut like ice. "She's been walking for weeks at home." "Clara, you probably just didn't notice before." That should have been the first warning sign. But I brushed it off. New mothers can be protective, I told myself. When their son Jacob arrived 2 years later, everything intensified. I was watching both children 3 days a week, plus most Saturday nights so they could have a break. I bought clothes, toys, paid for swimming lessons and gymnastics, because apparently money was always too tight. The children adored me, and I lived for their hugs and laughter. But I began noticing the subtle corrections. How Lila would pull them back if they clung to me too much. How she'd redirect their attention whenever they wanted to call me. How in their home, family photos prominently featured her parents, while mine were nowhere to be seen. Finally, one day, she said it plainly, her tone matter-of-fact. The kids are becoming too attached to you. It's not healthy for them to prefer their grandmother over their own parents. Her words struck me silent. Too attached? I wasn't competing with anyone, I was simply loving them the way a grandmother should. But the way Lila framed it made me feel like I was crossing some invisible line, as though affection itself had become a crime. That was when the rules began. I could only take the children to activities she personally approved. I had to check with her before buying them anything that cost more than $10. Traditions I'd hoped to pass down, baking cookies for Christmas, trips to the zoo, suddenly needed her permission. Aaron, my sweet boy who once shared everything with me, slowly pulled away. Conversations felt rehearsed, like he was reading from a script Lila had written. He no longer called just to chat, never asked for my advice. Our relationship became transactional. If he needed something, he reached out. Otherwise, there was silence. The final straw should have been last Christmas. I had poured weeks into planning a magical holiday for Lily and Jacob, homemade stockings, a scavenger hunt, their favorite breakfast. I even bought a small tree for my apartment so they could decorate it when they spent Christmas Eve with me. But Christmas Eve came and went with no call. On Christmas morning, I sat alone, surrounded by untouched gifts and cooling cinnamon rolls, staring at the door that never opened. Finally, around noon, I called. "Oh, Clara," Lila answered cheerfully, the sound of children's laughter in the background. "We decided to keep Christmas morning just for our little family this year. You understand, right? The kids need to know Christmas is about family time." Family time. As though I weren't family at all. As though I were some outsider knocking on the glass. That day, I let myself cry. Not the quiet, hidden tears I'd been swallowing for months, but deep, heaving sobs that ripped out of me. And yet, even then, I convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe I had been too eager, too involved. Maybe they just needed space. I told myself to be patient. To wait. But the requests never stopped. Could I watch the children while Lila spent a spa weekend with friends? Could I help cover Jacob's preschool tuition? Could I pitch in for the down payment on their new SUV? Each time, I said yes. Each time, I told myself this was what families did. Each time, I ignored the gnawing truth that I was being used. 3 months ago, things reached a breaking point. Lila's mother, Veronica, came to visit from Arizona. I thought, finally, another grandmother to share stories with, maybe even form a bond. I invited everyone for Sunday dinner, determined to make it special. My best pot roast, homemade bread, apple pie from scratch. They arrived an hour late, offering no apology. Veronica swept into my home like royalty inspecting a servant's quarters. She critiqued everything, my furniture, the way I'd set the table, even the size of my dining room. "Oh, how quaint," she remarked, glancing around. "The kids must feel so cramped here compared to their beautiful house." During dinner, she launched into endless tales about her other grandchildren in Arizona, how advanced they were, how involved she was in their lives. She held up slice after slice of my pot roast as though it were beneath her. "When you're really present in your grandchildren's lives," she declared, "you see the difference it makes." Each word landed like a slap. Aaron sat silent, staring at his plate. Lila smiled, nodding along as her mother openly belittled me. The lowest moment came when Veronica pulled out her phone to show off photos. Picture after picture of vacations, birthdays, holidays, all with her proudly front and center. Then she boasted, "We take a big family trip to Colorado every year. All the kids, all the grandkids. It's such a beautiful tradition." Lily looked up from her plate, her little voice cutting straight through me. "Grandma Clara, why don't you come with us on trips?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Lila and her mother exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. Aaron kept his eyes on his plate like it held the answers to everything. Finally, Lila replied with a syrupy smile. Oh, sweetie, Grandma Clara has her own life. She doesn't want to be bothered with family vacations. I wanted to scream the truth, that I'd never once been invited, that I would give anything to make those memories with them. Instead, I sat there, the fool, smiling as though her words hadn't gutted me. Now, lying in the hospital bed, I saw the pattern with brutal clarity. I wasn't family. I was staff. Convenient when needed, dismissed when not. The years of giving money, time, energy, love, none of it had earned me a place at their table. I was tolerated because I was useful, not cherished because I was loved. The phone beside me remained silent. No calls from Aaron. No texts from Lila. Their vacation mattered more than whether I lived or died. For the first time in years, I faced the truth head-on. And for the first time, I began to imagine what my life might look like if I stopped begging for scraps of affection from people who only saw me as a resource. The anger that had been smoldering in me for months finally crystallized. Not a fiery rage, but something colder. Sharper. A determination that sent a steady current through me. I reached for my notepad once again. This time, it wasn't out of despair. It was purpose. That second night in the hospital, sleep eluded me, not from pain, but from thought. My mind was alive in a way it hadn't been in years. Elena, the night nurse, found me scribbling at 2 a.m. "Can't sleep?" she asked kindly, checking my vitals. "I'm making lists," I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. "What kind of lists?" I looked at the pages filling up before me. Everything I've given them. Everything I've done. And everything I'll never do again. She paused, meeting my eyes. "Family troubles?" "Family truths," I corrected. I hesitated, then asked her quietly, if someone gave and gave, and the others only took without ever giving back, what would you call that? Elena sat gently on the edge of my bed. "I'd call it unhealthy. And I'd ask why that person keeps allowing it. What if they were your only family?" She gestured around the empty room. "Family isn't blood. It's who shows up. Tell me, Clara, who showed up for you?" The question landed like a hammer. Who had shown up? Dr. Wilkins, who'd listened to me with care. Elena, who had shown more compassion in 2 nights than Aaron had in years. The paramedics who rushed to save me. Even the chaplain who had stopped by just to check in. Not one of them shared my blood. Yet every one of them had shown me more love than my own son. "I think I've been confusing obligation with love," I whispered. Elena nodded. "Many do. But it's never too late to learn the difference." After she left, I went back to my lists. The first one, what I've given. 3 pages long. Money. Time. Energy. Opportunities abandoned. Relationships neglected. Dreams discarded. The total was staggering. The second, what I've received. Pathetically short. A handful of thank yous, staged family photos, limited access to grandchildren who were being trained to see me as second best. The third, what I want. This one was the hardest. I'd been living so long for others that I had forgotten how to want for myself. But slowly, I began writing. I wanted to travel. Italy had always been my dream, but my savings had been drained time and again by their emergencies. I wanted to paint again, something I had loved in my youth, but abandoned when Aaron was small. I wanted friendships that valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. Most of all, I wanted to stop existing on the margins of someone else's happiness. By morning, I had something I hadn't felt in years, a plan. Not loud revenge, not fiery confrontation, but something quieter. Stronger. I was going to reclaim my life, piece by piece, starting now. At 7 a.m., Dr. Wilkins came for rounds. She found me dressed, sitting in the chair beside my bed, my notepad clutched firmly in my hands. You look different this morning, Mrs. Lowell. How are you feeling? Dr. Wilkins asked gently. Clear-headed, I replied. Then I surprised even myself with the next words. Doctor, I need to ask you something. How much time do I have? Her brows furrowed. I'm sorry, what do you mean? I'm 66 years old, I said quietly. I've wasted so many years trying to buy love from people who were never going to give it back. If my health holds, how many good years do I have left to actually live for myself? Her face softened, understanding dawning. Clara, you could have 20, maybe even 30 strong years ahead of you. Are you thinking about making changes? I'm thinking about changing everything. She pulled a chair closer, her eyes steady on mine. Then let me give you some advice. I've cared for many patients in your situation. People who've spent their lives sacrificing until they wake up one day and realize they've forgotten themselves completely. The ones who truly thrive? They stop apologizing for wanting happiness. They stop explaining themselves to people who never cared about their well-being. They just begin. Begin what? I whispered. Begin living like their life matters, she said softly. Because it does. When she left, I asked the nurse for the patient advocate. I wanted to change my emergency contacts, update my health directives, and gather information I'd ignored for too long. Within an hour, I had a list of attorneys and financial planners who could help me reshape my life. My next call was to Eleanor, my neighbor. We'd always been friendly, but I'd never had time to truly connect because Aaron and Lila kept me constantly occupied. Clara, I heard you were in the hospital. How are you? She asked, worry in her voice. Better, thank you. Eleanor. I have a question. Would you like to go to Italy with me? She gasped. Italy? Are you serious? Absolutely. I've always dreamed of going. And it would be far more fun with a friend. Oh, my goodness, yes. I've wanted to see Italy for years. When? Soon, I said firmly. Very soon. We talked for 20 minutes, and for the first time in ages, I laughed. Eleanor didn't ask why, didn't wonder whether my family approved. She was simply excited with me. And that felt extraordinary. By afternoon, my discharge papers were ready. The social worker, a brisk woman named Carol, went over instructions and medications. Do you have someone who can check on you at home? She asked. I'll be fine on my own. What about family? I met her gaze without flinching. I'm learning to support myself. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Mrs. Lowell, trust your instincts. You're stronger than you think. Gathering my few belongings, I felt lighter than I had in years. My headache was gone. My blood pressure was normal. For the first time in decades, I felt in control. I called a taxi instead of Aaron. On the ride home, I saw my neighborhood with new eyes. The little cottage I'd lived in for 15 years, neglected garden, quiet rooms, suddenly looked different. It wasn't a waiting station for visits that never happened. It was mine. My home. My sanctuary. I walked through each room slowly, recognizing what they really were. The furniture bought for grandchildren who rarely came. The guest room made up for family who never stayed. The kitchen where I'd cooked endless meals no one appreciated. The first thing I did was unplug the landline. If Aaron wanted me, he could use my cell. I wouldn't sit by the phone anymore, waiting like a forgotten servant. The second thing I did was pull out the folder of travel brochures I'd tucked away for years. Italy, France, Ireland, places I'd always dreamed of but never allowed myself. I spread them across the table, already sketching a route through Rome and Tuscany for Eleanor and me. I could afford it now. Easily. As evening fell, the old anxiety rose. Normally, this was when I'd call Aaron, check on the kids, offer to help. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did because Lila once mocked grandmothers who drink. I sat in my garden, watching the sun melt across flowers I'd neglected, and let pride settle over me. I had survived a medical scare alone. I had made plans that belonged to me. For the first time in decades, the silence of my phone felt like peace, not rejection. Tomorrow, Aaron and Lila would be back from their precious vacation. Tomorrow, they'd expect the same agreeable mother and grandmother. Tomorrow, they would learn that role had been permanently retired. That night, I sipped my wine, mapped my Italian adventure, and went to bed early, without worrying about anyone else's demands. It felt revolutionary. The call came Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after my hospital stay. I was in the garden, hands in the dirt for the first time in years, when my phone buzzed. Aaron's name lit up the screen. My stomach lurched, the old reflex. For a moment, I almost let it go to voicemail. But curiosity won. "Hi, Aaron." "Mom. We just got back from Cabo. It was amazing, the kids had the best time. How are you?" His voice was cheerful, untouched by guilt. "I've been in the hospital, Aaron." A beat of silence. "What? When? What happened?" "Last Tuesday. Severe headache. My blood pressure nearly killed me. I was there for 2 days." "Oh my God, Mom. Why didn't you call me?" His concern sounded polished, like a performance. "I did. Multiple times. You didn't answer." "Well, we were at a resort, the service wasn't great." "I also called Lila. She told me not to bother you unless someone was literally dying." The silence on the line was deafening. I could practically hear him scrambling. "Well, you're okay now, right? You sound fine." "I'm fine," I said evenly. "No thanks to you." "Mom, don't be like that. We didn't know it was serious." "And if you had? What then? You'd have cut your vacation short? Rushed home to check on me?" Another pause. "Of course we would have." But there was no conviction in his tone, and we both knew it. "I need you to come over this weekend," he continued quickly, changing subjects. "Lila's parents are visiting again. We're doing a big barbecue. The kids have been asking about you." The old me would have agreed immediately, grateful to be included. The new me heard the truth in his voice. "What do you need me to bring?" I asked flatly. "Well, your potato salad, the brownies the kids love, oh, and maybe a case of beer for everyone?" There it was. Not an invitation. An assignment. "No, Aaron." A stunned pause. "What?" "No. I won't be coming to your barbecue." Confusion bled into his voice. "Why not? Are you still not feeling well?" "I'm better than I've been in years. But I'm not available to be your caterer anymore." "Mom, what's gotten into you?" "It's just a family barbecue." "Is it?" "Because it sounds like I'm being asked to supply food and drinks for your in-laws. That's not family time. That's staff work." "You're being ridiculous. We just thought you'd want to contribute." "I have contributed, Aaron. For 8 years, I've given money, time, childcare, and emotional energy. I'm done contributing." Silence stretched between us, thick with words unsaid. "What do you mean you're done?" I inhaled deeply, calm and steady. "I mean I'm finished being taken for granted. I'm finished being the family ATM. I'm finished begging for scraps of affection from people who only call when they need something." "Mom, that's not fair." "Then answer me this, Aaron. When was the last time you called just to talk? When was the last time you asked how I was, without wanting something? When was the last time you included me because you wanted me there, not because you needed me to carry the load? His silence was the only answer I needed. I'm going to Italy next month, I said, and just voicing it out loud felt liberating. Eleanor and I are going for 2 weeks. Italy? Aaron stammered. Mom, that's a huge expense. Are you sure you can afford that? The question was so predictable that I actually smiled. I can afford it easily now that I'm not bankrolling everyone else's dreams. His voice hardened. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm finished, Aaron. Finished paying for your mortgage, your cars, your children's lessons, your vacations that I was never even invited to. You're nearly 40. It's time you pay your own way. Mom, we never asked you to do all that. You didn't have to ask, I cut in. You took. And I gave, because I thought that's what love was. But it wasn't love, was it? It was a trade. I handed over money, time, and devotion, and in return, you tossed me scraps of attention. That's not true. Isn't it? I pressed. I lay in a hospital room for 2 days, and not one of you bothered to check if I was alive. But now you want potato salad for your barbecue. Do you hear yourself? Anger flickered in his tone. You're being unfair. We do care about you. No, Aaron. You care about what I do for you. That's not the same thing. So what now? He snapped. You're going to punish us? Cut us off because we went on vacation? I'm not punishing anyone, I said calmly. I'm choosing to live my life for myself. What about Lily and Jacob? His voice cracked slightly, playing the one card he thought could break me. The question sliced through me differently than the others. The children were innocent in this, and I loved them deeply. But loving them didn't mean continuing to be exploited. I'll always love them. But I won't be your built-in babysitter anymore. I won't be paying for their activities or tuition. If you want them to have a relationship with me, you'll need to make that happen without expecting me to provide services in exchange. Mom, this is insane. You're their grandmother. Yes, I said firmly. And if you want me in their lives, then you need to treat me like family, not staff. In the background, I could hear Lila's sharp voice. Aaron muttered, she wants to talk to you. I'm sure she does, I replied. But I'm done talking today. Aaron, I love you. I always will. But I love myself, too. And I'm finally ready to act like it. Mom, don't hang up. We need to sort this out. There's nothing to sort out. This is how things are from now on. Accept it or don't. But you don't get to change it. I ended the call before he could respond and powered off my phone. My hands trembled slightly, but it wasn't fear, it was adrenaline. I had just drawn the first real boundary of my life, and it felt both terrifying and exhilarating. An hour later, the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Aaron stood on the porch, face red with frustration. Lila was beside him, arms crossed, her expression stormy. I opened the door only a crack. Aaron. Lila. Mom, we need to talk about this, Aaron said, his voice taut. I think I've said all I need to, I replied. Lila stepped forward, sugary sweet. Clara, I think you're misunderstanding. We're family. Family works through things. Are we family, Lila? Because real family cares when someone is hospitalized. Real family includes each other. Real family doesn't treat each other like hired help. Her mask slipped. You're being dramatic. So we went on vacation and didn't hover over our phones, that doesn't mean we don't care. No, I said flatly. You didn't just ignore your phones. You told me not to call unless someone was literally dying. Well, I could have been dying. And you didn't care. Aaron jumped in, defensive. Mom, of course we care. But you can't expect us to drop everything every time you get a headache. A headache? My voice shook with disbelief. Aaron, I was in the hospital for 2 days with dangerously high blood pressure. That wasn't a headache. That was a medical crisis. But you're fine now, Lila dismissed. So what's the big deal? And just like that, it crystallized. These people I had sacrificed everything for couldn't even comprehend why being abandoned during a crisis mattered. The big deal, Lila, I said evenly, is that I finally see the truth. I spent 8 years trying to buy my way into a family that never wanted me. That's not true, Aaron said, but his voice was thin, unconvincing. Isn't it? I asked. Tell me honestly, Aaron, if I stopped giving money, stopped babysitting, stopped bailing you out, would you still want me around? His silence gave me the answer. Finally, he muttered, of course we would, but relationships are about give and take. You're right, I said calmly. And for 8 years, I gave. You took. That balance ends today. Lila's voice sharpened, the sweetness gone. You're being selfish, Clara. The children need their grandmother. They need a grandmother who's valued for who she is, not for what she provides. They need to see healthy relationships modeled, not exploitation. Exploit? Aaron snapped. We never exploited you. Everything you did, you offered. Yes, I offered, I admitted. Because I was desperate for your love. I thought if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, you'd finally see me as worthy of belonging. But I don't need to earn love anymore. I'm going to Italy with Eleanor. I'm taking art classes. I'm living the life I buried for years while I waited for your approval. Lila's mask was gone entirely now, her voice shrill. So that's it? You're abandoning your responsibilities? My only responsibility is to myself. You're adults. Handle your own. They left angry, but for the first time, I wasn't terrified of their anger. I wasn't going to smooth things over. I wasn't going to scramble to win them back. I was free. The harassment began the next day. At first, it was phone calls. Aaron rang every few hours, switching between fury and pleading. When I ignored him, Lila took over, leaving long, manipulative voicemails. Clara, this is ridiculous. The kids keep asking for Grandma. Do you really want to hurt them because you're having some kind of crisis? Delete. 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 By Thursday, it escalated. I was in the garden, finally tending the roses I'd ignored for years, when Eleanor appeared at the fence, concern etched on her face. Clara, are you all right? There's been a woman parked outside your house for hours. I turned, and sure enough, Lila's silver SUV was across the street. She sat inside, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing occasionally toward my house. It's my daughter-in-law, I sighed. We're having a conflict. Eleanor frowned. She was at the grocery store yesterday, too. I saw her following you. And she's been taking pictures of your house. A chill ran through me. I'd noticed her SUV yesterday but brushed it off as coincidence. The thought of her tracking me, recording me, made my stomach twist. Eleanor, do your porch cameras capture my front door? I asked. Yes. Everything, she said. Then softly, Clara, are you in some kind of trouble? I looked at her, this neighbor who'd shown me more care in a week than my family had in years. I don't know yet. But I may need your help soon. That night at 8 p.m., the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole and saw Aaron, with Lily and Jacob at his side. Their little faces were worried, confused. I opened the door, crouching down to their level. Hi, sweetheart, I said to Lily. Then I smiled gently at Jacob. What are you doing here so late? Daddy says you don't want to see us anymore, Lily whispered, her eyes filling. Did we do something wrong? My heart cracked. I lifted my gaze to Aaron, fury building like fire in my chest. You told them what? I demanded. He didn't flinch. I told them the truth, that Grandma Clara is too busy with her new life to spend time with family. I stood slowly, my hands clenched at my sides, my voice low with controlled rage. Aaron, how dare you use your children to manipulate me? I'm not manipulating anyone, Aaron snapped. You're the one who said you wouldn't babysit anymore. You're the one who said you were finished with family obligations. The kids don't understand why their grandmother doesn't want them around. That's not what I said, and you know it. I crouched again, facing Lily and Jacob. Sweethearts, listen to me. I love you both more than anything. I will always love you. But Mommy, Daddy, and I need to work out some grown-up problems before we can have our fun times again. Are you mad at us? Jacob asked, his lower lip quivering. Oh, honey, no, I said softly, pulling him into a quick hug. I could never be mad at you. This isn't about you. Not at all. I rose slowly, fixing Aaron with a cold stare. You need to leave. And you need to stop using your children as pawns. They miss you, Mom. They don't understand why you're acting this way. Then explain it to them, I said sharply. Tell them that respect is required in every relationship. Tell them Grandma Clara loves them, but won't let herself be taken advantage of anymore. So you admit it, he shot back. You're abandoning them. I'm setting boundaries, Aaron. That's not abandonment. When they finally left, my hands trembled with fury. I picked up the phone and called the attorney's office, moving up the consultation I'd booked for the following week. Enough waiting. The next morning, I was getting ready for my art class when Eleanor knocked on my door, her expression grim. Clara, I think you should see this. She handed me a printout. It was a Facebook post from Lila's account. Heartbreaking situation with my mother-in-law, it read. After all we've done for her, she's cut us off completely. She refuses to see her own grandchildren. We're trying to figure out what we did wrong, but she won't even talk to us. Please keep our family in your prayers during this painful time. Dozens of comments followed. Strangers, people I didn't even know, calling me selfish, cruel, and ungrateful grandmother. Some shared stories of elderly relatives who turned on their families. There's more, Eleanor said gently. She pointed to photos attached to the post. Lily and Jacob, their faces sad, with captions about how they kept asking where Grandma went. My hands shook with rage. She's trying to shame me into compliance. Publicly. What will you do? Eleanor asked. I'll go to my art class, I said. And then I'll talk to my lawyer. Art class was exactly what I needed. For 3 hours, I lost myself in watercolor and charcoal, surrounded by people who simply wanted to create. No one there needed anything from me. No one demanded explanations. During the break, my instructor, Patricia, a woman my age who'd started painting after retirement, sat beside me. You have such a natural eye for light and color, she said. I smiled faintly. I haven't painted since I was a girl. Life got in the way. Life always tries, she said with a smile. But it's never too late to take back the things that bring you joy. Her words clung to me as I drove to my attorney's office that afternoon. David Morrison specialized in elder abuse and family harassment. His office was professional but warm, his demeanor calm and reassuring. Mrs. Lowell, he said after reviewing the folder of financial records, screenshots, and notes I'd brought. Unfortunately, this kind of situation isn't rare. Is any of this illegal? I asked quietly. Some of it is in a gray zone. Following you, taking photos of your home, harassing you online, it could fall under stalking and cyber harassment, depending on escalation. But more importantly, you have every right to enforce your boundaries, regardless of what they're saying publicly. What can I do to protect myself? Several things, he said, handing me a folder. Install a home security system. Document everything, every unwanted visit, call, post, message. Keep dates and times. I'll also draft a cease and desist letter. It will make clear that if they continue harassing you, legal action is next. Won't that just enrage them further? Probably, he admitted. But it also creates a paper trail. If we need to pursue restraining orders, this will support it. The weekend was blessedly quiet. I used the time to install the cameras David recommended and to continue planning my Italian trip with Eleanor. But by Sunday evening, the quiet broke. An unfamiliar number flashed on my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered. Is this Clara Lowell? An elderly woman's voice asked. Yes, who is this? My name is Dorothy Stevens. I saw what's been posted about you online, and I wanted to reach out. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. I don't understand. Dear, I went through almost the same thing with my family 5 years ago. Different details, same pattern. Adult children who drained me until I had nothing left, then turned on me when I finally said no. I sat down hard, unsure if I should listen or hang up. I just wanted you to know you're not alone. And it does get better, she continued gently. What happened with your family? I whispered. They fought me for months. Manipulations, guilt, smear campaigns. But eventually, they realized I wasn't going to bend, so they moved on. I lost contact with my grandkids, and yes, that was the hardest part. But I realized something important: children learn by watching. If I had stayed and allowed myself to be treated poorly, what would I have taught them about love? When Dorothy hung up, I sat in silence, her words echoing in my mind. What had I been teaching Lily and Jacob all these years? That love meant sacrifice without respect? That family could abuse you so long as they occasionally threw you crumbs of affection? Maybe stepping away, as painful as it was, would teach them something truer. On Monday morning, David called. The cease and desist letter has been served. Expect pushback before they quiet down. He was right. By Wednesday, my cameras caught Aaron peering through my windows. Lila made fake accounts to send me abusive messages. And someone, probably Aaron, left a bag of trash on my porch with a note that read, "This is what you are." I documented every incident. And with each one, my resolve only sharpened. They thought they could bully me into surrender. That I would crumble under pressure, beg to be taken back into the fold. They didn't realize the truth. I finally had something worth fighting for. Not them. Not approval. Not access to children dangled like bargaining chips. But my own dignity. My own peace. My right to be treated with basic respect. And I wasn't giving that up for anyone. 6 months later. I stood on a terrace in Tuscany, the hills bathed in golden light, olive trees dotting the horizon. Eleanor and I clinked glasses of Chianti, laughing at our attempt to order dinner in broken Italian. I can't believe we really did this, she said, cheeks flushed with wine and joy. When you first suggested Italy, I thought you were losing it. Maybe I was, I said softly. But it was the best kind of breakdown. The harassment had continued for 3 months after the letter, visits, smear campaigns, even an absurd call to Adult Protective Services claiming I was neglecting myself. That backfired spectacularly. The social worker who came found a healthy, independent woman making rational choices. She even gave me resources on protecting myself from family abuse. The turning point came when Dorothy introduced me to a group of women who'd endured the same betrayals. Margaret, whose sons drained her retirement. Patricia, from my art class, who discovered her daughter had been forging checks. Alice, whose son-in-law manipulated her daughter into cutting her off. We began meeting for coffee each month. It started as support. It grew into friendship. It became a lifeline. And as I looked out over the rolling hills of Tuscany, I realized something I'd never allowed myself to believe before. I was finally living my life. Not as a servant. Not as an afterthought. Not as an ATM. But as Clara. And that was enough. What we all shared in that little circle of women was the same wound. We'd been raised to believe that family loyalty meant tolerating mistreatment. We'd confused enabling with love, sacrifice with devotion. I spent so many years trying to be the mother they wanted, Margaret said once during one of our coffee meetings, that I forgot to be the woman I needed to be. That sentence stayed with me, echoing through every decision I made afterward. The smear campaign Lila launched against me online eventually fizzled out. People began to ask the obvious question, why were grown children humiliating their own mother on Facebook instead of handling things privately? The tide shifted, and suddenly, their narrative didn't seem so convincing. Some of my old friends even reached out. Over lunch one day, my friend Janet admitted, "We could see you shrinking, Clara." Disappearing into their demands. We worried, but whenever we tried to say something, you defended them. She was right. I had defended them even when their behavior was indefensible, because to admit the truth meant facing how completely I'd lost myself. The real turning point came when Lily, now 8, somehow found my number and called me directly. "Grandma Clara," she whispered, "why don't you come see us anymore?" My heart nearly broke. "Oh, sweetheart, it's complicated. Grown-up things." "Are you mad at Mommy and Daddy?" I thought carefully before answering. "I'm not mad, Lily. But sometimes adults need space to work through things. Mommy says you don't love us anymore." The cruelty of that lie stole my breath. "Listen to me, darling. I love you and Jacob more than anything. I will always love you. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them treat you badly." "I don't understand," she said softly. "One day, you will. And when you do, I hope you'll remember that Grandma loved herself, too." That call changed everything. I hired David Morrison, my attorney, to help set up a trust fund for Lily and Jacob, money for their college education, released when they turned 18, regardless of their parents' actions. "I want them to know I thought about their future," I explained to him. "Even if I can't be part of their childhood." 6 months later, my life barely resembled the one I'd been living. The art classes blossomed into a small gallery showing. 3 of my paintings sold, not for fortune, but for something far better, the joy of knowing someone saw beauty in my work. Eleanor and I had become inseparable friends. We took day trips to museums, tried new restaurants, even sat in on lectures at the community college. I joined a hiking group and discovered I actually loved the challenge of pushing myself physically, on my own terms. My health improved dramatically. The headaches were gone. My blood pressure returned to normal. I slept peacefully for the first time in years. "It's amazing what happens when you take chronic stress out of the equation," my doctor remarked at my last visit. "You look like a different woman." And she was right. My house reflected the change, too. Gone was the furniture I'd bought for other people's comfort. The guest room was now my art studio. The kitchen table, once a place where I sat waiting for calls that never came, was now covered in sketches, paints, and travel guides. I even started dating again. Richard, a widower from my hiking group, had lived through his own lessons about letting go of toxic relationships. "The trouble with difficult adult children," he told me over dinner, "is that you spend so much energy trying to fix the relationship that you forget there are other relationships waiting for you." He was right. I had wasted years begging for love from people incapable of giving it, all while overlooking genuine connections with those who valued me for who I was. On our last day in Italy, Eleanor and I took a cooking class in a little village near Florence. The instructor, a lively woman named Lucia, told us her philosophy. You must cook with amore, she said, gesturing with her hands. But amore for yourself first. If you don't value what you create, how can you offer it to others? That night, as Eleanor and I packed for home, she asked me seriously, Clara, do you ever regret it? Walking away from your family? I folded the scarf I'd bought in Rome, a little indulgence I'd allowed myself without guilt. I regret that it was necessary, I admitted. I regret that Aaron learned to see love as a transaction. I regret that Lila never learned to value people for who they are instead of what they give. I regret that Lily and Jacob are growing up watching their parents twist love into control. I looked at the photos from our trip scattered across the bed. But I don't regret choosing myself. I don't regret realizing I'm worth more than my usefulness. That part, I'll never regret. Do you think you'll ever see them again? Eleanor asked softly. Maybe, I said. But if I do, it will be on equal footing. Or not at all. I'm done begging for crumbs of affection from my own family. 3 weeks after Italy, the test came. Aaron called. Mom, his voice sounded different, hesitant, unsure. I think we need to talk. About everything. About how things went wrong. Lila and I, maybe we didn't handle it right. I stayed quiet, waiting. The kids miss you. We miss you. Maybe we could start over. Maybe lunch sometime. Just talk. The old me would have leapt at the chance, grateful for any opening. The new me considered carefully. Aaron, I'm open to a conversation. But you need to understand, I'm not the same person I was. I have boundaries now, and I won't erase them to keep the peace. I understand. Do you? I asked. Because this isn't about you apologizing and me slipping back into the old role. This is about building a completely different kind of relationship, if we're going to have one. A pause. Then, quietly, what would that look like? It would look like mutual respect. It would look like you valuing my time and feelings the way I've valued yours. It would look like including me in family life as an equal, not as unpaid staff. His voice cracked slightly. Mom. I think I'm starting to understand. I hope so, I said. Because I love you, Aaron. But I love myself, too. And I won't sacrifice one for the other anymore. We agreed to meet for lunch the following week. What would come of it, I didn't know. But for the first time in my life, that uncertainty didn't frighten me. I had built a life I loved. A life full of creativity, friendship, peace. A life where I mattered to myself. At 66, I had finally learned to love myself enough to demand respect. And that had made all the difference. Now, I'll ask you, the one listening to my story. What would you do in my place? Have you ever lived through something like this? Tell me in the comments below. And before you go, I'm leaving 2 more stories on the screen, viewer favorites you won't want to miss. Thank you for staying with me until the end.